Hey there. I'd like to invite you to join in my new free 3-part soul centered business training called You Are the Medicine. In this free 3-part training, you will get clarity in your business, be activated and in action, and overcome your blocks, fears, and imposter syndrome so you can start sharing your unique medicine. The world is changing. Things around us are just getting chaotic and crazier every day. And people need your help. People are yearning for transformation and healing and growth. If you feel the call to be a soul-centered, heart-led coach, healer, therapist, psychedelic pioneer, or other kind of transformational service-centered entrepreneur, I invite you to join us at You Are the Medicine free 3-part business training. The link is right here. You can sign up for free, and I hope to see you soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Medicine for These Times. I am so excited because this is a very special conversation and interview with a good friend of mine, Karen Gordon, who is coming to us live from Peru. And wow, has just traveled for, I can't tell you how many hours, like 24 hours straight. And I'm so honored that you're here. I have to say, Karen, this is my first time doing a Saturday morning interview, but it's so fun because you're a friend. And I feel like we're just like hanging out, having a cup of cacao together.
Cheers, Beth. It's such an honor to be here with you on this Saturday morning. After a full day of travel, I'll have some too.
I have rose cacao. So I wanted to bring Karen on and talk about this incredible project with Huaca Montegrande in Jaén, Peru, where we are fundraising to help save, and well, I keep saying save this sacred site, keep it open, this archaeological site that both of us had the honor to visit this summer. And I mean, I can still feel in my bones like the visceral feeling of entering onto that land and just being really floored. Like I don't want to cry because I was crying the whole visit. But yeah, tell people a little bit about Monte Grande, what it is, and also what your experiences was when you first visited it. There was a group of us this summer.
Hey, Beth. Good morning to you from the middle of the Amazon jungle. It's an absolute delight to be here with you today and to share a cup of cacao and to speak about a place that is close to our hearts. As you know, and we can just let all the folks who are visiting know. So we were able to visit Huaca, Montegrande, this past summer because we were traveling with friends. And a friend of a friend knew the lead archaeologist of this program. And this program is actually run by a nonprofit organization, a Peruvian nonprofit organization called ASICAMPE, which is in English means the Association for Scientific Research of the Peruvian Amazon. So we were all really excited to go. And so I know that we were all floored when we entered this incredible temple space. As soon as I arrived, my whole idea as to like what archaeology is or what it could be completely changed. Because I think previously I had thought, an archaeologist is somebody who is kind of digging up fossils or is, so many things. And for me to be able to see a group of people working really quietly, very silently, barefoot, with tiny little brushes and with little like magnifying glasses. And there was a type of harmony in the space that just kind of, I believe it opened all of our hearts. And to hear Dr. Quirino Oliveira speak about the history of this place brought tears to all of our eyes. And I think that those tears are what's still driving this beautiful project, these tears of awe, these tears of gratitude to be able to be in a place that is at least 6,000 years old. one of the things that we learned is that this temple space is the oldest in Peru that has been found so far. It's the only one in the entire Amazon that's chosen, I feel, and so many of us feel like, to reveal itself. This is not a place that's being dug upon. But as our friend Susan has talked about, she really felt like, and we all feel like, this temple, as does this archaeological team, this place wanted to be discovered.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to share a
Yeah.
little bit about the history
The
of Montegrande,
story.
like it was crazy, the
The
story of the
story.
garbage pile and everything.
Yeah, let me just share a little of my own personal experience, and then yeah, we can both share the details because you know more of the details than I know. But I heard about this place a year ago, and all I heard was ancient cacao site, and I was like, what? And someone's like, oh, this site has evidence of like the oldest cacao use in Peru. And this area of Peru is known for cacao and coffee. It's the high jungle of the Amazon region. And I was like, my eyes lit up, and I'm like, what? Like, I've never been to a cacao connected sacred site. And then we had the honor of going there, and I didn't know what to expect. I honestly, I don't know why in my head I thought it was just this like little like museum with like some remnants and like a sculpture, but I didn't realize it was like a whole archaeological dig that was live and still happening. They were literally finding things like the week we were there. So when I went, or when we all went, yeah, it was definitely this heart opening experience. It was what, four guys in this whole site, and they were working barefoot. And when they, of course, what else would you expect from people doing this sacred work in Peru? But they said, we make offerings and prayers to this land every day, asking the spirits to guide us. And I was like, well, yeah, of course. You're not just an archaeologist doing this kind of very patient, like imagine like uncovering pieces of dirt and rock all day long for 14 years. So this is a story I know, and I want Karen, you fill in the details. And this is where it's like, I do really believe in my heart and soul that cacao as a sacred plant has made it onto the world stage. We all know it's an ancient plant, and then chocolate has been around, but now it's so like it's almost become a meme out there in the kind of spiritual world that everybody offers cacao ceremonies, and it's almost like a joke, and some people don't take it seriously, and people like me are like, I love me a good cacao ceremony because I love this medicine. It's like almost daily in my life. And I do believe with the popularity and how it's like just expanded so widely across the planet, I do believe I keep calling her she. It's like Montegrande feels like this woman that's like a spirit who's like, hello, uncover me, tell the world about me. So this is the story I know, and then you can fill in the details. This site is on top of a hill outside of kind of on the outskirts of high-end Peru, in this high Andes or high jungle in the Andes, the edge of the Andes. And all I know is this part about there was a church built on this piece of land. And I don't really know the history of why they built the church there, but I remember the story was like, families would bring their children to church, and the children were just like, I keep saying the children were just like wonky. They were like crying and screaming and not settling down. And, it's church. It's a sacred, you're supposed to be kind of quiet and tune in. And they noticed, the people noticed like something's up here. And so they closed the church down. And then it became a garbage dump. I don't know the whole like details of how this happened. And then, of course, you're like, oh, but it's Peru and this happens. And then I also don't know how Quirino had insight to start exploring this area, but essentially, I just want to name this. It was only 14 years ago. This is like the thousands and thousands and thousands of years of sacred sites have been discovered all over the planet. And this one, just 14 years ago. That's so recent in the grand scheme of human, civilization. And so they've been working on it, and now they're out of funding. And this effort is to help us raise money so they can stay open. And by the way, I will also name this, the amount of money that they need to keep this afloat and keep it, running. And I said today in my email, uncovering the mysteries that keep revealing there. It's so small in the grand scheme of, projects in the US, or projects in this, here it's like my street needs paving, and that's like, $200,000, and down there that would last them, hopefully years. So I just want to like have people really see the perspective that every dollar really helps for this campaign. So yes, help me fill in the details. Do you know, like, why did they build the church? How did they even like discover this? It's crazy.
Beth, it's been a real honor for me to learn so much more about this site. And I was just there. I mean, I don't know if we said this at the beginning, but I've landed here in the Amazon because I have another project that I'm working on. But I'm literally coming fresh from Montegrande. I just spent a few days there with Quirino and the team. And so it's a privilege and an honor for me to be able to speak about it. And if we can just imagine, it makes a lot of sense where this temple space is located, because it's actually located in the center of the Huaca Valley. When we stand on the mound of what is now Huaca, Montegrande, and you just look 360 and, in all directions, what we see are these beautiful plains that are used for agriculture. We also see some human settlement, but then we also see the mountains, right? So it makes perfect sense why maybe 8,000 years ago or 6,000 years ago, we still don't know because the excavation's not done, that there was a temple space that was built in a mound. And then ritually, these mounds used to be covered. And so I think that when, the mestizo settlers came in, and of course, when the church came in and everything else, they thought, oh, this would be, look at that mound in the middle of everything. That would be a good place to build a church. And there's a story that's told too, that when they started digging to put the foundations of the church, they were actually really excited because they found all these stones that were all in a line. And so they thought, oh, okay, great. We'll put one of the bases of the church right here. And so, so that was that. And they did end up closing the church because, like you said, the children were suffering from something called susto, which is just, they were inquietos. They were not able to settle down, as you said. So this place was covered with trash. It wasn't the dump, but it was the neighborhood junk pile. Let's just say it was the neighborhood junk area. And there was a neighbor there who used to find artifacts, and somehow or another, I need to ask Quirino this, but the word got out to him, who's an archaeologist, who has always believed in that there was a more sophisticated society in the Amazon than just being simple hunter-gatherers. There was always the question in the archaeological world and the anthropological world in Peru and in South America, where did the Andes, for example, cultures come from with their amazing cosmovisions? And it was never, ever thought about and never, ever believed that they could have come from the very simple people who lived under the trees in the Amazon. And so Quirino was really interested. And so he came and he looked and they were able to receive a grant first just to kind of clear out the garbage, right? So they found the top of this amazing mound. And instead of using an archaeological technique to, dig trenches, like let's say 3 meter by 3 meter squares, he just started feeling the space. And he said, what we're going to do is actually a more widespread, thinner layer excavation of the top of the mound. So we're going to go wide. We're not going to go deep. And thank goodness that he followed his intuition. Because one of the things I've been learning about archaeology is that he says that, if you're working in the field, 50% is scientific and 50% is spiritual and intuitive. You have to be connected to a place. So the most amazing thing that he found, and I think probably you're going to create links for people to see this. This is what struck me. This is what was heart-stopping for me when we visited the space. What they found at the very top of this mound, and the very first layer of excavation, was a massive spirit made of stone. Meaning, so this spirit so laying down on the ground, right? Like flat on the ground. And what they found was a head, a thorax, two arms, two legs widespread, what would be considered a womb canal, and then a massive stone spiral. Massive.
Huge.
And this non-profit, very tiny, small group of scientists had absolutely no idea what they uncovered. They had no idea the ripple effect that it would start making and how it would change history. So there was an archaeological site a little bit more to the northwest in Ecuador that had been found called Palenque, and it was relatively similar, and interestingly enough, in the same river valley, so this area is called the Marañón Valley. The Marañón River are the headwaters of the Amazon River, okay? And there is a lot of cacao that's grown in this place. So Quirino and his team just thought, whoa, okay. So they were able to look for another grant to continue their excavation. And one of the things that they found, okay, so when they began their excavation, they realized that they were at the top of a pyramid. So the stone spirit, had been placed as the very last event. So I'm learning all these things. In archaeology, these things are called events. It was the very last event before they covered the mound. So the spirit was probably created with so much prayer to protect or to hold the site, and then covered. So Quirino and his team really feel like this spirit wanted to be discovered because it started showing itself, and so as they uncovered the top layers of this pyramid, which they're finding now is at least a 5-story pyramid, they started finding pottery. They started actually finding burials. They found skulls. They found what I learned just yesterday or 2 days ago was the difference between a primary burial and secondary burials. They found a lot of secondary burials. A primary burial is where somebody, dies and then they're buried in the site. A secondary burial is where perhaps it could have been medicine men or medicine women or people of, high religious stature were buried elsewhere, but had already been buried. But then they were covered in clay and brought to the site in order to provide guidance for the person who they believe is buried at the center of the temple. So they started finding all of these things. And we're talking about the very first layers. They started finding pottery.
Yeah.
And at the different offering sites. So they were starting to find, as they moved down through the temple, and we need to remember that this takes time, right? They're working across a wide area, and they're not excavating trenches. Instead, they're doing wide open, slowly going down. They were finding offering areas, which had like jaws of mammals, that had snail shells from the coast, that had all of these things. And they also found pottery. And they did, in the very first layers of this temple, carbon-14 dating of the soil. And then they also did studies of what was on the inside of the pottery. The soil was found to be at least 5,300 to 5,400 years old, of the top layer of the temple. Wow. And the cacao, the substances that they were able to scrape out of the inside of the pottery was cacao. That was at least 5,300 to 5,400 years old. That alone changed history. That alone changed history for two reasons. One is that what Montegrande and then also Palenque uncovered was a previously undescribed civilization that lived in the Amazon. A civilization that was not hunter-gatherer, a civilization that was highly sophisticated, that worked with agriculture, that they made textiles, they made carvings, they had enough technology and enough, let's say, subsistence. And it makes sense if we take a look at the valley in which they lived. I mean, it's incredible for agriculture. Enough subsistence that they were able to focus on art, that they had enough technology to make a pyramid that lined up with the
Yeah.
solstices and the equinoxes. I mean, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. Just the other day, I was there and we were taking a look at all of the different burial sites. They were all facing the east. They were all on the eastern side of the temple where the sun rises. And one of the only primary burials that they have found so far is, they believe, they don't know yet if it's a man or a woman, but completely decked out with a collar that actually had human teeth,
Wow.
and also so many snail shells, jewelry and everything else. And they were laying down facing directly in the east. So not only did the place find and was able to start to describe a culture that had never been described before, they also found the remnants of what may be the earliest domesticated cacao in the world. So cacao as a botanical species has existed in the Amazon. So cacao is I can get a little science
Yeah, no,
nerd here
wait.
because I'm a
I
biologist.
want to tell people, we're going to tell people this at the beginning, but Karen is a scientist, by the way. She knows what she's doing. Wait, go on. Because I'm such a
Okay.
science nerd, but I don't know anything about any of this. Please,
Right.
yeah.
So for me, my love of being here in the Amazon and all of the projects that I work in is, I love plants. And as you know, I'm a devotee to restoration ecology. And so for me, knowing that cacao is a native plant to the Amazon, and it, as a botanical species, has existed for 10 million years. But the dance with humans, the domestication dance, which is not a domination dance, it's a domestication, it's a relationship dance with humans, we believe began about 8,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, we don't know. But what we do know is that the cacao, the ceremonial grade cacao, the cacao beverages were found in pottery vessels, are the oldest examples to date of ceremonial cacao beverage in the world. And that it is truly believed that this Marañón Valley, where Montegrande is, where there are other mounds. We visited just 2 days ago. I was walking through ancient cacao forests.
Interesting.
That is, Peru has 14 varieties of ancient cacao. They call it cacao criollo, like original cacao. And they've done some genetic testing on this cacao. And it has the same genetic profile as the cacao that was found in the temple. Those were the stories for me as a biologist and as a restoration ecologist when I visited Montegrande. Blew my mind. And so one of the things, as I was walking through these farms and listening to the farmers, my heart was really stirred, because ASICAMPE is not just an archaeological group. ASICAMPE is the Association for Scientific Research in the Peruvian Amazon. And one of the reaches of this project is also out, like into nature. It's not just the site, it's also out into nature, and working with and making alliances with the Awahun people and the other mestizo people who have these ancient lands, whose grandparents and great-grandparents and great-grandparents have stewarded them. And for me, these cacao forests and these cacao trees are their living history that connect so deeply to this temple space. And so for me, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this project is, for me, the Huaca Montegrande represents a piece of, this great cry that we have in the world of saving and protecting the Amazon, which is one of the greatest living laboratories and one of the greatest stores of history in the world. For me, as we support the Huaca Montegrande site, and as we support ASICAMPE, which is the nonprofit group, we are not only helping to support this incredible cultural heritage from the past. I mean, we still have like 3 more meters to go to excavate. This temple could be, we know it's much older than 5,500 or 6,000 years old. Because, well, not only are we able to help preserve this place and to allow the studies to keep on happening, we also have the opportunity to conserve biodiversity as well. Because let's remember that cacao is a native plant. It's a native tree. And a lot of these farmers in the area are feeling a lot of pressure around the development. People are selling their farms. They're being encouraged to cut down the ancient trees and to plant genetically modified cacao, or to cut down the native trees and then graft genetically modified, cacao on
because
top
it
of it in
grows.
order to produce more. So it's a very complex story. But the Huaca Montegrande is, for me, as a biologist and as a restoration ecologist, I never ever once thought that I would be involved in what seems to be an archaeology project, but for me is actually a restoration project. It's a restoration of history. We are discovering so much every week. Beth, I mean, I think that you know this, that a couple of days after you and I left, they found one of the most remarkable pieces that they have found to date, really, really, really deep in the temple. There was nothing else around it except it was near a deeper, older offering area. And it was a stone, round, carved cacao.
I was like, whoa.
like a carved, it wasn't the cacao, that it was a stone that was carved in the shape of the native cacao, which is very, really high in theobromine, theobromina. And so if you see on my Instagram stories or some of the photographs that I shared with you, some people are asking me like, wow, like that cacao is really round. Yeah, some of the native cacao is really round.
Yeah.
No. So that is part of what I'm learning about. And that, not only that, but so we know, we've learned about through the Huaca Montegrande has blown open history, because not only has it, in a way, opened the doorway for the Marañón culture, this ancient, sophisticated Amazonian culture, to show itself. It has allowed us to see, to understand that, in fact, this area was very likely the earliest site of cacao domestication. And this is not a competition. The people have always wondered, where did cacao come from? Was it Mexican, or was it from Ecuador? In a way that doesn't necessarily matter, but we have the scientific evidence that was published in a paper just in March by 24 other scientists from around the world. They're called archaeogenomic scientists, who study the genetic material of plants and follow their pathway through domestication, just like corn or just like other things. We have done this with cacao, and Montegrande is sitting in an area that I would say is the absolute cradle of where cacao has come from.
Oh my God.
Right. So that alone. And then the third thing, which for this particular group is is mind-blowing and history-changing is that this temple site so far is the earliest one that exemplifies human spirituality and religion, like a building a place in the entire Amazon for reverence and thanks, with a female spirit on top, with a womb space, with a massive spiral that's going deep into the ground. And we have not yet excavated the the center space because we're out of funds. ASICAMPE is out of funds. And I'm saying the word we because I feel very close to the project, and as a as a biologist and some of my other skill sets, the not-for-profit group asked me if I would be an associate with their group, and so I was very happy to go and do the paperwork and all of those things to help move this project, to speak about this project. And as you know, there are so many of us who are doing that. It's not just my voice that's out there. Your voice is out there, and we have so many other people who are starting to now speak about this place. Mhm.
So this is so beautiful, and I love that you're sharing that it's all interconnected to this deeper understanding of a whole culture of ancient peoples, of this interdependence, which I just wrote about in this email I sent this morning about reciprocity and Aini, and how it's not just like donate some money here and there, but it's so much deeper. It's about realizing that it's all interconnected. And even what you just shared about the farmers, it's heartbreaking to hear that. I mean, it's all interconnected. And by the way, I'll just name that we're recording this while, the Amazon has been burning. There's a lot of attention going there. It seems like the world is in chaos, of course, that's not new. But there's also, and I just actually looked it up because I heard about this summer. There was another Peruvian Amazonian tribe that has now just been photos have been released into the public just in the last few months, and now there's this, and it's coming onto the radar, and there's more and more interest in these indigenous cultures, and how it's not just this one sacred site, but it's really like, how do we look to these ancient wisdom traditions and cultures to guide us in the ways, the ways of reciprocity, the reverence, and living in harmony with the earth and the land and the spirits of the land. And what is it that we need to be learning right now? What is it we need to take from this and bring into our lives and our day-to-day culture? Yeah, so I was just talking about how this is, you were saying this is more than just an archaeological dig. This is about culture. This is about wisdom. It's understanding, what is actually happening, and learning from these ancient cultures, and understanding that there's a reason why this is maybe coming out now. And so I wanted to talk about, why this project, what we're doing, there's fundraising and what people listening can do to help. And I just wrote an email today, and it's weird. This has come up so much lately in my work with one of my teachers, Jeff Firewalker. There's been a lot of talk out there in this kind of the medicine space about, is there enough reciprocity being built into people's businesses? Is the medicine being worked with in right, skillful ways? And really, are people making offerings and in Aini, like walking in Aini in general, And it's been interesting over the years. I've had clients and, been connected to people, even in my community, who run cacao ceremonies, call themselves cacao facilitators. There's now people selling like how to host a cacao ceremony. I've done a cacao dieta myself, and I'm blessed to have worked with someone who is trained by, someone in the Guatemalan wisdom tradition. And it's just so interesting that this is coming alive right now. And it's like, well, I think it's time to really educate people and have people see how they can contribute to this project, whether it's financially or energetically. I actually just wrote an email today about Aini, and how it's not always just giving money. Yes, of course, this group needs money to stay open, but it's It's like, how can you use your voice? How can you amplify this project? How can we start educating more and more people, especially people who work with the sacred medicine? This is not just a medicine that you go buy at Whole Foods, even though it's readily available all over Amazon, Whole Foods, and in your local market even. Like, I live in the middle of nowhere and I can buy cacao at my local market, you know? So that's what, you know, this is all about, is really education and reciprocity, and bringing this forward, and showing that, you know, yes, we would love anybody to donate, but even if you just share or even take the time to learn about it, to be able to then share it, bring it into your cacao circles, bring it in, you know, make an offering. And when I say make an offering, it's like Karen and I and a few of us did this when we were there at Huaca, Montegrande this summer. We had the blessed opportunity of purchasing some cacao bars that were made with this ancient cacao. You know, it's like the DNA was connected back to, you know, 500-year-old cacao trees. So I opened one of the bars and I gave a piece of the cacao back to the earth with a prayer, with an offering. You know, it's so simple. I always say, you know, we always have hair, one strand of hair given with your heart back to the earth and making an offering. You know, it's just like this simple prayers, but also those of you listening, you know, you have maybe friends, community members, and this is what we wanted to talk about, is how you can share and where the money goes to. And then Karen, yeah, tell a little bit about this hummingbird story, which I do remember, but I'm like, no, that wasn't me that shared it. But yeah, we were imagining 500 hummingbirds getting involved.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think one of the things, thank you for your patience as the power has been going off and on here in the Amazon. I mean, I am literally in the jungle. We didn't get to the part of the story as to why we need the funding.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so I'd like to share a little bit about what's happening right now with ASICAMPE and what's happening with Huaca Montegrande. So we've talked a lot about, you know, this changing of history and the rewriting of history and these incredible discoveries that are literally being made every single day, literally, or every week. But funding has kind of come to its end. And we knew that was going to be happening at the end of August. But we were sure that a grant was coming through a different not-for-profit organization that has to do with like Peru and Ecuador. And through bureaucracy things, that whole actual not-for-profit program froze right before our donation was going to come. So what needs to happen is just to keep us in work through December, which could help us get to the central spiral, is we need $50,000. And there's something that's really interesting about, you know, an archaeological dig or an archaeological study that I like to call it, not a dig, but a study, that the Ministry of Culture is in charge of kind of keeping things, like making sure that everything is fine, but there's no government money that comes to any type of archaeological projects and studies in Peru. And so that's why this is a nonprofit organization that's taken this on, and they have the permission to do it. But one of the things that is very clear in the law, and this has happened throughout Peru multiple times, is that if you have a study that includes an excavation that is halted because of a lack of funding, what needs to happen is the entire site needs to be reburied. And they do that because of, you know, the Peruvian government understandably would like to protect national patrimony. But after 14 years of being in this process, and after 14 years of fundraising, and after 14 years, and every week we're getting to this really amazing place, this critical moment, to have to halt and then to bury this temple? Like, no. And so, you know, the reason that this story came out, because this is not a story that they walk around waving this flag. When we were visiting Beth, along with our friends, you know, as somebody who's worked in conservation for a very long time and who always, and, you know, I've run not-for-profit organizations before, and I've always worked in the nonprofit sector. My question is always like, I wonder what their operating budget is, and I wonder, like, how are they doing with funding? So right before we left, the first time that I visited, I asked Quirino, Dr. Oliveira, what's your operating budget like? How are you guys doing with funding? And he got really quiet, and I sensed something in him, and he said, and he did not mention this to us at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? That's how like noble he is. And he said, we're almost out of funding. We might need to rebury this site. And when our group of friends heard about this, we said, no way. But then we asked, what can we do to help? And so, pardon me, I did go back to the Huaca, Montegrande, and I spoke with him. And then when I went back to Costa Rica, we had a few more phone calls. And we were just trying to stay open, and among many of us, including other friends who had gone to visit, like Susan went, and our friend from New York went and subsequently. And then she called me when she came back. And she said, wow, Karen, like, what can we do? And I just kept on thinking about fiscal sponsor, because in the United States, most people prefer to donate to a 501c3 organization where you can make a charitable contribution, get a tax write-off. And Susan was looking for some avenues, and our friend Laura was looking for some avenues. You were looking for, there were many of us who were just open to this idea of who could be a fiscal sponsor, a 501c3 fiscal sponsor. And then our friend Laura actually found one, and she connected me to them. I had a phone call. I told the story. And typically to become a sponsee, it's a huge process. And I think that the energy of Montegrande was so present. And she said, no, like, we're doing this right now. We're signing a contract, and we will be your 501c3 fiscal sponsor. So I called ASICAMPE and Don Quirino, and I said, listen, we have an incredible opportunity here. So it's one thing to be looking for, massive grants and all those things, but those take time. And what we need money now, this month, because this is the month that we have to report to the Peruvian government. We're kind of stalled here. And then a supervisor will come, and they will say, okay, the site needs to be closed. And so, so we are partnering with the Abundant Earth Foundation, and they do amazing work all throughout the planet. They have projects in Africa and Indonesia that they fiscally sponsor. And so when people make a donation to the Abundant Earth Foundation, and we have a page that you can share, Beth, that not only is it helping ASICAMPE and the Huaca Montegrande project as a reciprocity offering from our community, it's also helping to amplify amazing work that's happening throughout the world. And so here's the hummingbird story. There was an anthropologist who was speaking, Alfredo Cerdas, I think he's from Chile, and he was speaking about Montegrande not too long ago on an Instagram live in Spanish. And he was saying how there is this old story from the jungles and from in many cultures where the forest is completely on fire, kind of like what's happening here in the Amazon. I can smell the smoke in the air here right now. And the jaguar, the otorongo, was telling all the animals, okay, like, everybody needs to get out, save yourselves, like, get out, it's time to go. And the jaguar's there just making sure that, the community of animals is safe. And he sees this little hummingbird that's tiny and is flying over to get a little drop of water and putting it on the fire and going over. And the jaguar's like, what are you doing? And it was almost making fun of this little hummingbird and scoffing at it and saying, come on, go. And the hummingbird very nobly, very proudly said, I'm doing my part. And so when we heard the story together, we talked about this as a group of friends, and we said $50,000 is nothing. $50,000 is 500 people making a $100 donation. We can save an ancient temple site, and we can support a not-for-profit organization that is helping to educate and to protect world heritage, which also includes the farmers, the lands, the native ancient species of cacao, and a temple site that has so much more story to reveal. So any of us, I'm not a cacao facilitator. I've always wondered how I would be in service with cacao, and now I understand partly what my service is. It's as a biologist and as somebody who is bilingual and somebody who can be a bridge and somebody who has a voice. And one of the things that we realize is we need to get this story out to our community that wraps the, cacao has traveled the world. It's traveled the world in the north, the south, the east, and the west. Chocolate is one of the most gifted gifts. It's present in when we're grieving. It's present when we're celebrating. And it's amazing for me to think about, anytime we drink some cacao or chocolate, or even eat chocolate, the great, 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 great grandmother of that cacao has come from this Marañón Valley. And so for me, just like when I love to come to the Amazon to work and, dig and plant trees and study, I also come and give the greatest of thanks and the greatest of praise to the greatest medicines that also come from this place. It's my offering. And so many of us who work with cacao as facilitators or elsewhere might have really great practices of making sure that their cacao is sustainably sourced from, and they have direct relationship with groups that have been stewarding cacao for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that's a beautiful thing. And thank you so much for doing that. And the opportunity to give an offering, to make an offering to the Montegrande, the Huaca Montegrande temple is an extraordinary, it's an extraordinary offering for these extraordinary times. And it's needed now. It's not just enough to have a vision, but vision needs to have action. That's when we become mission-oriented people. And even if it's $10 or even if it's just $20 or $25, it doesn't matter. It's your offering. And it goes all the way back. It goes all the way back through time. I think about the thousands, look, now I'm getting all teary. I think about the hundreds and the thousands of people that it took to build this incredible temple. And I was looking at the stones the other day, and I was imagining our entire cacao community around the world that's English speaking, and that's offering ceremony, and that's doing education. And I thought, as I saw every single stone, each one of these stones was placed by human hands with a human heart in reverence. And I just imagined, even though people can't visit Montegrande right now because it's not open to the public, there's a way for us to touch each one of those stones. And that as this temple rises from this earth to be known, to be shown, to teach, to eventually be a pilgrimage site, it will probably be an UNESCO World Heritage Site someday, for sure. That it's like when a baby is born, it needs a community to support it. And I just felt the worldwide cacao community that's in the north, I'm speaking to people in New Zealand, I'm speaking to people in the UK, I'm speaking to people in France, I'm speaking to people in the United States. Like, we need to know about this place and we need to support it. And as we support it, we're also supporting a not-for-profit group in the Amazon that is not just excavating, but doing so much more for the restoration of culture, the restoration of lands, and the protection of native species, which cacao is. And so we have the opportunity to do that. It doesn't take much. It just takes a little bit of action. There's no such thing as it's too little. Like, oh, I can't make $100. It's okay. Make a baby hummingbird donation. Maybe there's going to be somebody else who will bring in the big eagle egg or a big ostrich egg. Yes. And and it's all tax deductible if you're in the United States. And so if you're a cacao company or if we get to do this. What a beautiful opportunity we all have to come together in a common mission. We get to talk to the people who come to our cacao ceremonies. We get to talk to the people who come to our chocolate shops. We get to do this now, this month. This month, when I think about, Halloween is at the end of this month, and this is really the month in Peru of the ancestors. And on November 1st and on November 2nd, they celebrate here Dia de los Muertos and Dia de los Ancestros. And it feels like we get to be supporting this ancient knowledge and these ancient wisdoms to come out of the ground. And I think about Quirino and the staff that are no longer working at the site. There's just a guard there right now. But one of the guards is an archaeologist. And he's still there, kind of with his little brush. I saw him. He was still with his little brush, taking care of this site that is just extraordinary and is opening to the world. Mm-hmm. This is so much more. This is so much more about an archaeological dig.
Yeah.
It's about how are we in relationship with the ancestors, and how do we send strings of support. I dream of a global gift of gratitude to cacao.
Yeah.
A global gift of gratitude. Our lives change when we do something like this. And so there's a lot happening in the world right now. There's people who are supporting the fires in the Amazon. We have, our dear friends that are suffering so much in the South. After the hurricane, there are wars that are being had. It's a lot to hold. And yet a lot of people are being held with their relationship with cacao to keep their hearts open. And now the birthplace of cacao needs our attention and our care right now too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I couldn't agree more. Oh, there's no words. I want to leave it at this because this has been so powerful. And I want to thank you for going, 18 hours out of your way or more than that, just to pay homage to the site, to be in the jungle, doing really sacred work, sharing your voice on this podcast and then others. And, I do imagine we're going to get this out there. And like you said, it's a global gift of gratitude. It's not just about this one site or this one plant. It's so much more than that. Mm-hmm. The ancestors, the Aini, the reciprocity, being in right relationship, especially, people working in this kind of medicine world. Cacao is so interwoven, the sacred plants, anybody doing work in any ceremonial way. It's like, are we asking ourselves every day, like, how am I giving back? Even if it's just sharing about this or making an introduction to someone who might be even more interested. So we do ask that, you amplify this, share it around, give this some attention, at least give it some respect and honor, at the very least. That's what I say. It's like education, educate yourself, share the stories, amplify the message. And we do need the money. So, and I do believe we're making it happen.
It's a way to make a prayer, just like we can take a string of hair, we might be able to take, $5 or $10.
Yeah.
And that goes, that's a line of energy that's going in a prayer. And we can do that with, with our way of praying. We can make a donation in a prayerful way as well. And it's one way that we get to connect to a site. And by being connected to a project like this, the wave of impact that has back into our lives is massive. And so I definitely encourage people who are listening to this podcast and who are feeling moved to be in contact with Beth. I'm here in the Amazon now for the next 3 weeks, and I am going to be in a pretty remote area. And so I will have some connection. But really, Beth, I think that you might be the best point person for the people who are listening. I'm smiling because I'm seeing a whole group of these beautiful people who I met yesterday, these medicine men and medicine women who have just come from 15 hours overland from the deep Peruvian Amazon, and they're here where I am staying tonight, or where I stayed last night to give a presentation. And they just walked by just as we were talking about reciprocity and the efforts that they're making to also have their messages and their culture known and seen. And so thank you, Beth, for this opportunity to share this message. And I'm always available for you, or for anyone. My ability to be able to be in deep contact is a little challenging at this moment, but I will make it happen, because where there is a will, there is a way, and will exists because where there's love, there's a way. So
Here's my dream. And by the way, I've seen this happen once at least, and probably more than once. You're going to come out from being offline and it's going to be like, oh my God, look at all that. Because one of our friends, I won't name names, but one of our friends experienced this once, where she came back from the jungle and was like, oh my God. miracles and prayers, and we'll make it happen. And thank you so much for dedicating your early morning in Peru before you head out to deep in. And thank you so much for everybody who can donate. Just, I was thinking, like, even the cost of 1 cup of cacao, if you donate that much, that's it. It's like, give up 1 cup one day and give the money instead. And that's it. And then share it with your friends, your community, your social media, your emails. Like, just amplify this message, and let's make this a global movement. Thank you, Karen. I love you.
I love you too, Beth. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.